Good evening from New York. NBC News has learned new details about what happened when Navy SEAL Team 6 raided the compound where Osama bin Laden was killed. There was no prolonged firefight. U.S. officials now tell NBC News that 3 of the 4 men shot and killed, including Osama bin Laden, were unarmed and never fired a single shot. According to this latest account, the only shots fired by the enemy came from a courier who was not in the building where Osama bin Laden was found. That courier, who was shot and killed, was in the guest house on the compound. Another group of SEALs entered bin Laden's house and conducted what is being described by U.S. officials now as, quote, precision clearing operation. 1 man was reportedly killed on the first floor. The SEALs found stashes of weapons and barricades while making their way through the house. They encountered bin Laden's 19-year-old son, who was unarmed, coming down the staircase. He was shot and killed. Bin Laden's bedroom was on the 3rd floor. The SEAL team threw open the door. One of bin Laden's wives rushed toward one of the commandos. She was shot in the leg. That same commando then pointed his gun at bin Laden and fired 2 shots, 1 to the chest, 1 to the head. Though bin Laden, who was reportedly in pajamas, was unarmed, there were weapons in his bedroom. This new account is significantly different from the one initially provided by senior counterterrorism advisor John Brennan on Monday.
The concern was that bin Laden would oppose any type of capture operation. Indeed, he did. There was a firefight. He was engaged in a firefight with those that entered the area of the house that he was in. And whether or not he got off any rounds, I quite frankly don't know.
Go ahead.
I was just thinking about that from a visual perspective. Here is bin Laden, who has been calling for these attacks, living in this $1 million-plus compound, living in an area that is far removed from the front, hiding behind women who were put in front of him as a shield.
The White House had already amended Brennan's account, saying bin Laden was not armed and did not use anyone as a human shield before the latest version of events emerged tonight. In an interview today with CBS News, President Obama explained why he will not release the photos of Osama bin Laden's dead body.
There is no doubt that we killed Osama bin Laden. It is important for us to make sure that very graphic photos of somebody who was shot in the head are not floating around as an incitement to additional violence, as a propaganda tool. That's not who we are.
But, of course, fake photos of dead bin Laden have already turned up on the internet, along with pictures claiming to be of others killed inside the compound. New details continue to come out about bin Laden, the compound, and the aftermath of his killing. Bin Laden reportedly had 500 euros, about $750, and 2 telephone numbers sewn into his clothing when he was shot. Pakistan's ambassador to the United States said today Pakistan plans to launch a series of internal investigations into how they missed bin Laden and to find out if anyone in the Pakistani government had helped him. But Pakistan doesn't plan to involve the United States in its inquiry. Late today, the Associated Press, quoting U.S. officials, reported that Navy SEALs shot bin Laden after they saw him appear to lunge for a weapon. Attorney General Eric Holder testified to the Senate today that there is no doubt that the killing of Osama bin Laden was legal.
The operation in which Osama bin Laden was killed was lawful. He was the head of al-Qaeda, an organization that had conducted the attacks of September the 11th. He admitted his involvement. As you indicate, he said he would not be taken alive. The operation against bin Laden was justified as an act of national self-defense. It's lawful to target an enemy commander in the field. He was, by my estimation, at the estimation of the Justice Department, a lawful military target, and the operation was conducted in a way that's consistent with our law, with our values. If he had surrendered, I think, attempted to surrender, I think we should obviously have accepted that, but there was no indication that he wanted to do that.
Joining me now is the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Republican Congressman Mike Rogers of Michigan. Thank you very much for joining me tonight, Mr. Chairman.
Lawrence, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
First of all, what do you make of the inconsistencies that have emerged from Sunday to now in the White House account of exactly what happened at the compound?
I think the White House was eager to get information out. I heard conflicting stories in the beginning as well, and I think they probably went with what they had. You know, in those kind of environments, I used to be an FBI agent. I have cleared houses before. Your heart is pumping. It's confusing. No one really knows all of the circumstances until it's all done. The action has stopped, and you can sit down, take a breath in safety, and be debriefed. And I think what you're seeing coming out today is the most accurate report about what happened in an operation to take down a very lethal, somebody's been responsible for the slaughtering of thousands and thousands of men, women, and children over the last few decades. And I think we're going to spend a lot of time fly-specking these little details. At the end of the day, Osama bin Laden is dead after the U.S. military entered his compound and brought him to justice.
Chairman Rogers, you said today that you agree with the president's decision not to release the pictures of Osama bin Laden. Have you seen those pictures?
I have.
And having seen them, does that inform your decision, or is it a matter of something you just wouldn't want to release no matter what those pictures looked like?
Well, my concern, as I said earlier today, is we don't want to treat Osama bin Laden like a trophy. I just talked to a soldier today who served after the Abu Ghraib pictures came out. In their units, the day and the days subsequent, were reminded that it is likely to get more dangerous. They had to double their first aid kits. They had to double their patrols, spend more time on patrols, and violence had an uptick. And when you look at that and you say, what value do we have in showing this photo versus what we know are soldiers who are in harm's way in places where we know some people, I'm not talking about the people who are against this, they're going to be against this. But, you know, in a village in, say, Ghazni, Afghanistan, there may be a village elder who's wondering, should I be for the United States or should I be for the Taliban? I don't want any reason whatsoever for him to say, nah, I'll be for the Taliban. These guys don't like Muslims or offended me in some way. It's just we don't need to add to that soldier's difficulty. I just, again, don't think there's anything on it. The wives have come out and said that it was Osama bin Laden, and yes, he's dead, and we have DNA of 99.7% accuracy. I have seen the photos. I have requested that the rest of my committee, and I understand today they'll honor that, will see these photos. I just think that's the appropriate way to do it, and so that we can get on with it and realize that we have a whole bit of network of al-Qaeda still to get after here.
Have you had a chance to see any of the video from Sunday?
We'll be seeing that, I believe, tomorrow.
And photos, how many photos have you been shown?
It was not a formal briefing by any means. I happened to be at the headquarters, and it was informal, but I'm going to guess 3 or 4.
And why do you think it's important for the rest of your committee to see the photos, and would you extend that to the rest of the members of the House?
Well, I personally would. I would let members who wanted to come in and see the photo to do that. I just, because we're in the Intelligence Committee, because we're responsible for oversight and policy of the entire intelligence community, because this was an intelligence-based operation under the laws and rules and regulation that put the CIA in charge of this operation, I felt it was important that my committees see all of the information that we had available in order to make good policy decisions going forward.
Based on what you know as the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, is it your sense that the hardware that was captured there, the 5 computers, the 10 hard drives, may be the single most valuable snatch that we've picked up in all of our intelligence gathering?
Well, I am cautiously optimistic about the items that and the evidence that were picked up on the way out of that building. It could be great and it could be nothing. I don't want to get people's hopes up. I feel that there's some value there. I think it certainly has impacted al-Qaeda already in the sense that we know they're trying to make changes and do other things. So I'm very hopeful that this will give us an even more complete picture about certain things, and certainly the individuals that Osama bin Laden was talking to and communicating to, and how the network was working. And remember, This started over 5 years ago with a nickname, which is just incredible, but a nickname of somebody they believed might be a courier for Osama bin Laden 5 years ago. And I mean, that's like saying, go find Little Joe in Texas, and oh, by the way, he has a southern accent. I mean, it is completely a difficult task. And they did it from that little piece of information that was gleaned through an interrogation. Imagine if we can get any little piece of information like that, only 10 times better. It is going to really help our effort in trying to dismantle the al-Qaeda network.
And finally, Chairman Rogers, what has this mission taught us about how to fight the war on terror? This was a very light footprint mission, a few helicopters, a couple of dozen SEALs flying in there to conduct the single most important one-day mission in the history of the 10 years of the war on terror. Does that tell us that that approach is more effective than planting hundreds of thousands of troops in countries like Iraq and Afghanistan and trying to occupy and run them?
Yeah, and I've heard that. Well, clearly we don't want to occupy and run them. I do think sometimes each circumstance is different. Remember, we're fighting the Taliban in Afghanistan, and that is a very different fight because it's a larger armed paramilitary, if not military, organization that is seeking to gain and hold ground so that they can sell poppy and other drugs and go back to making sure that women, where it's against the law for women to be taught to read. I mean, that's who you're fighting there. That's a different fight than going after the al-Qaeda network. And I think we need to be careful. This was one great successful operation. We didn't hear, at least the public didn't hear, about lots of other unsuccessful operations and dry holes and where information just wasn't right. We heard about this because it was big and it was right, and I think they performed expertly, and we should be proud of the intelligence analysts all the way down to our military special forces team that went in and did this work. So we can't use this as the end-all, cure-all for all events. It just wouldn't work. They do 3 or 4 of these a night in places like Iraq and Afghanistan. Our special forces do. It's really quite an amazing thing. And our intelligence folks are working leads for bomb makers and facilitators all over. And again, at the same time, our soldiers are fighting the Taliban, which is a different thing. So I would be really cautious about trying to lump it all together and say, aha, we have found the winning formula. This is one thing that we know has worked today and has worked in the past, but it can't be all things to all our problems when it comes to the war on terror.
Michigan Congressman and House Intelligence Committee Chairman Mike Rogers, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Hey, thanks, Lawrence. I enjoyed it.